So let me call the meeting to order. This is, what is the date today?
14th. Pi Day, March 14th.
Yes,
Oh, Pi Day. Happy
Yeah.
Pi Day, everyone. And it's about
36,
6:36, okay.
according to my laptop.
So in present are Ann Harrison, Susan Philbrick, Sarah Mellish, myself, Chris Oley, Richard Smith, Denny Hall. Mark Resnick is here, the town planner, and Sandy Bodmer-Turner. And is Michael, right?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, by Zoom. I think Gar is still in New Zealand,
I think he's in the air. Yes.
in the air.
Yep.
Does that mean he's flying or is he?
Hopefully not
He's
paddling.
detained by a plane, but we don't know. Okay, so let's get started here. Gail will not be present, so we're just gonna have to wing it ourselves. First item on the agenda is acknowledgement of received correspondence, and I believe we had a letter from Donna first. It's the only correspondence I'm aware of. Anyone have any comments on correspondence? So let's move on to the meat of the program tonight, which is Emily and more modeling. And I hope we can actually start pinning down some of these districts.
Yes. Good evening. Nice to be back with all of you. I am going to share my screen very briefly. So I have two pieces of modeling for you tonight. One is your requests from our last meeting. And the second is Mark had asked me to do some additional modeling, or ask us to do some additional modeling. So I am going to show you the first, your request first, and then, oh, somebody needs to let me share my screen.
Oh, where's this being hosted? I guess it's from,
Did anyone sign in as a?
no one has signed in.
I'm doing that.
Okay.
Hate to give up my laptop to do it.
Well, while you do that, and thank you very much, I'll just walk you through that we had been asked to do a set of requested scenarios and come to some options that were minimally compliant, so I can show you that. In addition, at the risk of sort of jumping ahead of things from the districts that Mark asked us to model, we do have a potentially compliant district there as well, certainly compliant geographically. I'll show you the conditions under which it is currently also compliant in terms of unit capacity and density. So I'll show you the numbers in a little bit, but we used the existing zoning to do the original models, and we have three scenarios under that, and then we have modified models for two of the scenarios that show geographic compliance to see if we could come to a unit capacity and density requirement. And so we have two minimal compliance there, and then, as I said, there is a final scenario that is also compliant in all three areas. So with that,
Having some user errors.
that's fair enough. So I'll just keep going and catch up with the numbers and showing you the first scenario for compliance.
Recording in progress.
I do love the echo. The first scenario for compliance was modified Lower Pine Street. I'll try again.
No. Okay.
Pass. All right, let me see if I can share.
No, I haven't gotten that
Yeah, I
far.
got that far, okay. So the first
I gotta
for,
find you.
oh, of course, that doesn't work, right? Because I'm at the top for me, but I can't tell you where I am for you. The joys of Zoom.
Emily, you're talking off the pre-meeting package for the March 14th.
I am, yes.
Great,
So if
okay.
you have that with you.
Scenario
thank you for
one,
comparing
minimum
that.
compliance.
So,
Okay, you should be able to share.
beautiful. Let's do,
Thank you, Sarah.
yes. Perfect. So for those of you at home who may or for here rather, who have the pre-meeting packet, that's what I'm working off of, with an addition at the end that you haven't seen yet, because it was finished approximately an hour ago. So the first of the requested scenarios from the last meeting that we had together, these are the zoning parameters and the modifications we made for the scenario tests. You've seen these before, so we're using D-2, G, and the LCD. For the LCD, we're using the same minimum lot size for our residential tests as in the other two districts, because the minimum lot size for business is 5 acres. We're also carrying over the parking spaces. Everything else is as it is in the zoning. So our first test for minimum compliance, the scenario 1, was the modified Lower Pine Street that we talked at the last meeting, Morse Sawmill, Powder House, Elm Street. Station area test, we're good for the acres within the station area. And just as a reminder for people, we're looking at the targets down here. We're good for the final unit capacity for the station area. Great for the total number of acres, great for the final unit capacity, great for the dwelling units per acre. This is obviously not the minimally compliant scenario, but we also meet test 2, which is the contiguity test. Scenario 2, which is also compliant, same thing. We've dropped the modified Lower Pine Street. We've added the Valentine District. So we have more Sawmill, Powder House, Valentine, meet all the station area requirements. Add Mac and Med Center, meet all the other requirements, but again, we're over in units and density, well over in units and density, meeting contiguity. 3, we were asked to do Lower Pine, Morse Street, Morse Sawmill, Powder House, Adbrook, Desmond, and just the medical center, so not the MAC. That is compliant for station area test. For total, we've got well over the number of units we need based on this, but the contiguity requirement is not met. So this is geographically not compliant.
Just to be sure I understand,
Yes.
the contiguity requirement in the red is a moving target, essentially.
Yes, it's 50% of your
Of whatever the
whatever
total
you come
area.
up with. Yes.
So,
Yes. And that's why we do it with every single test, is because it's that moving, and that's a great question. So then we said, okay, let's put aside 3 because we know it's not compliant geographically. Let's see how close we can come to your minimum requirements in scenarios 1 and 2. So we've changed the zoning parameters, and one thing that we did here, and actually the first thing that we did for scenario 1A is we changed the minimum lot size for the LCD to 5 acres, and we put a maximum dwelling units per acre on it. So we heard, or I heard at the last meeting, that there was some concern about how many units might be developed on the parcels under on those parcels under the existing. What that does for us is it brings it down to, we're still well within the station area test. That's not a problem itself. We still meet the total acres. We are just above at 574 units, just above your required unit capacity of 559. And at 16.64 dwelling units per acre, we are just above your 15 dwelling units per acre. And of course, we still meet the contiguity test. So with those changes, we get to that. Yes.
I have one question. If you could go back one slide, please,
Sure.
Emily. So those are the parameters that were put into the model.
Yes.
So does that essentially mean that any lot in the general district, for example, that's smaller than 6,000 square feet just falls out?
Correct. And those,
So it remains the same, and that's the end of that?
yes, and that's a good point. So I did not change the zoning parameters for D2 and G from the original modeling. So, but your question on the 6,000 square feet, and it's true of any of these districts, it's true of your existing zoning. If you have a lot size that is lower than the minimum lot size, it's considered to be a non-conforming lot.
Mm-hmm.
Under the model, that is rejected, and that lot is not modeled.
Okay.
So,
You're indicating here that 40% is the minimum for structures. I'm assuming that's the maximum. That's what our zoning is.
yes, sorry,
Okay.
that should have been maximum,
Good, okay.
yes. There were 2 of us working on this,
Yeah.
so yes, thank
Okay.
you. And that's how it was put into the model, just so
Good,
you know.
yeah.
It's a typo of
That's what I
words
figured.
rather than the model, yes. So scenario 2A, you see that let me just back to 1A, back up to 1A, you meet the requirements. You still have quite a lot of unit capacity in the station area tasks. So one of the thoughts was, can we push that downwards even further? So scenario 2A, we've made 4 changes, the 5 acres and the 12 dwelling units per acre that we did the first time. And then we also put a maximum dwelling units per acre on D2 and G. And this was really to see just how close could we get. I realize that 28 is more than 15. And so there are probably some people going, well, why didn't you just limit it to 15? And the reason we didn't do that is because you wouldn't have made your numbers. We tried we tried several options in the model to go back and forth. So with this, and remember this was more Sawmill, Powderhouse, Elm Street, and Valentine instead of Lower Pine Street. You meet the stationary test. We have a slightly lower, let me just double check, actually it's slightly higher. Sorry, this wasn't to see how low we could go, this was the Valentine change, my apologies. I'm thinking of another test we tried. You're still you're a little bit above what you had before. So you still have some additional capacity over the 559. You're a little bit higher in density. That's just because Valentine and Lower Pine Street have different characteristics. But the point is, you are still compliant in all respects with this particular district. Now, we did do a scenario 4, and Mark, what I think I might do is just stop and see if anybody has questions on this first round, then let you talk about the geography, and then I can talk about what it looks like in terms of the model. But if anybody has any questions on these first 3, I'm happy to answer them before turning it over to Mark.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So the 28 units per acre maximum
Yes.
limit, is that sort of typical for zoning language? Does language say that you can do no more than 28 units per acre?
Yeah, you can put that in as one. There are a couple of ways to restrict the number of dwelling units per acre on a lot, or the number of dwelling units that an individual lot can have. That is one of them that is possible to do. I actually started at, let's see, when I was modeling this, I knew 15 wouldn't work, so I think I started at 20 and just kind of kept going up and down to see what the number would get to. So just a caveat, this is very much a mathematical exercise and not a planning
Yeah, okay.
exercise. But you can also do lot area per dwelling unit.
Like 2,000 square feet?
Yeah, it's not necessarily as clean a calculation in some ways. I think a couple of communities very early on in the process thought about maximum number of units per district. That was, I then heard through sort of the planning grapevine that was rejected because you can't, property owner number 7 developing, if property owners 1 through 6 have used the capacity, it's not fair.
Yeah.
So it's in there because there are zoning districts out in the wild that have those in there, but it's not considered appropriate for the MBTA communities. So I would say those 2 work, yeah.
Can you limit number of dwellings per lot?
Yes, in fact, you've already got that limitation. It's not in this model, but you have that 4 dwelling units per
Okay,
lot already.
okay, so that's built into this.
That
okay.
is not built into this. We have
Oh,
to
it's
take it
not.
off. You would never meet your capacity
Okay.
requirements if that were on there. So that is currently, what you see is what went into the model.
Okay.
When I was working with the model, I used the technique that you just mentioned, which is the use of a base lot size. I kept the 6,000, but I put a 4,000 base and a 2,000 or 2,500 foot per lot additional. And what I found was that you could use that to very effectively balance the push-pull between what happens on smaller lots and what happens on bigger lots.
Yes?
Is that not something that would be used normally? I mean, it looks like you can just dial right in exactly what you want with it.
It's been used frequently. You could use it on this. I think the key right now is to get to the geography.
Yeah, I agree.
And then absolutely, you can test out and see what that looks.
I think it's important for us to keep in mind the fact that we
Yeah.
really can,
Right,
we really can adjust this, and we can also adjust the balance between the 12,000-foot lots and the 8,000-foot lots and so forth.
and that's where I say, you know, this is a mathematical exercise to get to compliance. Your suggestion very much comes into the planning for the specific areas. And I think that is absolutely part of the conversation that can still happen. And I think it's a good thing for you all to consider. It's just, we need to get that geography first, because right now, if we started modeling all of those dimensional variations on each of the lots, we would be here for a lot longer. Any other questions on these three before I? Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Mary, go ahead.
I'm just looking at other communities' proposed bylaws, like, and I have a file at home, but I didn't bring it with me, but for example, Andover. Are you working with Andover?
I'm not working with Andover, so I'm not familiar with what they're doing.
They state 15 units per acre max. So I think that could be a good thing to use. And then, again, I could get a list of the communities, but they all state both the max lot coverage and then open space percentage. So you could have open space, you know, max lot coverage of 40%, and then you're gonna have 25% open space.
Yeah, and as you can see on there, we have an open space percentage built into the model already. The 15 dwelling units per acre may work with I don't know which, because I'm not working with Andover, I don't know which geographic areas they've chosen. It's possible that that works. It does not work mathematically with the geography that we're looking at now. The dwelling units per acre is calculated on a parcel by parcel basis. And so when I plugged it in with the parcels that you have now with these restrictions, 15 dwelling units per acre does not get you to the density or the capacity on a district-wide basis.
It would work if you have 1 acre lots.
It would work if you had 1 acre lots, yeah. And don't forget, there's excluded land in the calculation.
Yeah.
Which, so, you know, if you're using 1 acre lots, there's absolutely no excluded land. You can get
It
there.
can work,
Yeah, so, but it's not working with the current combination that you have.
It would also eliminate any possibility to balance.
Exactly, yeah. So,
Okay, should we move on to Mark?
Did you model all 4 of these areas?
I modeled, let's see, we added Newport Park back in, we modeled Desmond #1, we modeled Summer #2. We looked at your storage. I've got an interesting thing on your storage for you, but yes, we modeled
Okay.
them, yeah. But if you want to talk about them first, then we can go
well,
through and show them.
So, so I had just thought that if the Pine Street project, including area, including adding the Newport Park at the end
Is there
of
some way we can put these on the screen for people to see?
Let me stop sharing and see if I can pull them up on my laptop, yes.
It's your original, I think,
Well, the original one we had.
1B and 1A, Emily, if that helps you.
It's
1A
more to
is
get
Newport Park.
his on here.
Yeah, we
so-
want,
No, I just finished that.
Yes, it's here.
And we did not have it, yes, right, but in order to get it on the screen, I need to pull it up.
Can you go back to your original, because it was 1A, it was.
we don't want to go back to the original. We want to deal with what we have on our plate
So
now.
I was-
Well, no, but the original is what this
I
is.
I
But
can
it's
send
the
it to
same
her, and so
format,
I
so-
can send it to you.
It looks different.
I've got it, I just need to get there. We did not have time to remap everything, we had just enough time to
Did you,
model.
Mark, did you log into Zoom, Mark?
No, I am just gonna forward this latest thing.
Oh, you've got,
Emily
your
right
ones,
this
okay.
second.
But you've handed it out to all
I
of us.
handed it out, but
I
I
mean, it's
just
this-
finished
I know,
updating that last one.
but she
Right
wants to get
now.
it up on the screen so people at home can see
Yes,
it.
they can't see it, you all can
Right.
see it, but they can't see it, so, yes, Mark, if you can send it to me, I will put it
I'll
up there
send
for
it to
everyone.
you.
And so the other caveat is if you just finish updating them, Mark, we'll just double check that there were no changes to what we modeled, but that's part
The
of
only
it.
thing on the Pine Street is just adding the Newport Market.
And how many acres did that come to?
Didn't get a chance,
Oh,
someone came
okay.
in to.
It's a little over
add
21.
Yeah,
21?
I
the
will
whole core district.
say
Yeah.
that although Mark is showing this as a single district, we are still modeling it as multiple districts so that if you do want to balance things by sub-district, we still have that opportunity. So just to let you know.
Probably a good idea, because they're
That's a really good
different-
idea.
Different animals.
And I'm just opening up the other two. But let's get one more second. Mark sent me a lot of maps. Okay, I think I have them all up now. Just close all of those out of the way. And thank you for the patience of those at home. Now, let me see.
Ah, beautiful.
Now, hopefully it will allow me to show them all. Let's go down here. Okay, it's not letting me, Joe. Do you want to start at
Just do one.
Pine? Just tell me which one you want to start at.
yeah, the Pine Street one,
Number 2?
Pine Street number
Pine Street number 2.
Okay. Let's start with that one then.
There you go.
Yes, that's it.
Yes.
So that's the Pine Street number 2, that's over 21 acres, which gives us our contiguous area. All that area has been modeled in the various sub-districts, but this is combined as a single area. This also gives us a lot of, 50%, close to that within the district. So seems like everyone was in agreement that this is an area, if the numbers work, we want to include this in our area. So from just a boundary perspective, this is like step one. We have to agree that this is what we want to do. The zoning parameters, if we need to modify them a little bit in the overlay district to spread out the density a little bit so that we get the unit count that we want in here. We can do that when we're crafting the actual text of the zoning. Do we reduce the setbacks? Do we allow a little more lot coverage, etc.? But as far as defining the boundaries, this is kind of what we need to do, like today. Okay.
So are we
because-
going to take a vote?
Well, that's what I'd like to run through these various scenarios and discuss them, but I mean, if we would
And
like
then
to
we
vote
should
on
take a
this,
vote.
I really think this one, we really can vote on tonight.
Yep.
We've discussed it quite a bit.
I move that we accept Pine Street number 2 as one of our zones.
It's a
Here's
core
second there.
district.
Overlay district, yeah.
I accept that.
Second.
Is there room for a public question or comment at any point?
At the end of this, we will certainly have public comment, yes.
Before we vote, I do have a comment. I think I'm in favor of this. But I just want to caution people that until you look at the unit counts going into these properties, you're not entirely clear on what you're voting for. I think this is going to work out. I wouldn't accept it as it came in the spreadsheet. In the spreadsheet, we have some very large developments on Pine Street, but as Emily says, that will probably get tuned.
Yes.
But it is important to keep in mind that we don't yet know how many units are going to be built on each of those lots, and there's some pretty sizable lots along Pine Street. So I'm saying that just as maybe a
Cautionary.
cautionary note.
That's kind of step 2.
If having proposed this, I am uncomfortable with a sort of meeting where we take a vote and take a position, and then somebody who has not on the committee but has a valuable comment is not heard, and then we go back and say, gee, we just did something dumb.
Oh, so you'd like to hear the comment, the
Yes.
gentleman's comment now?
I would urge that we try today to resolve in an informal way what our choices are and vote on these at perhaps a meeting before our final meeting so that we have a
Today.
chance to really drive into detail.
Well, I think the thing is that you're going to the planning board on the 25th. You need to come in with a concrete proposal. You don't have to have complete text written of the entire zoning, but you need to come into the planning board, or planning board will be redoing all these exercises and will not be kind of evaluating what you're proposing. And, you know, I believe, I wasn't here at the beginning, but this task force was tasked in putting together a proposal. And so you're coming to the planning board on the 25th, and I think you really need to come in with a proposal. We have a meeting scheduled for next week. We have the architectural subcommittee coming in to present to you what they come up with. And so, I mean, it's, you know, this committee's under kind of a tight timetable. I mean, if there needs to be adjustments as we craft the zoning and we come and we tweak it, and maybe we have to adjust an area, but I believe in order to move this forward, you know, you need to kind of make some decisions on these areas.
I think getting the area, I agree with Ann's comment about wanting to hear the comment from the gentleman who raised his hand. But I also agree that what we're trying to do here is not the fine tuning, but the geography. And I actually, Sarah, the map, this is identical to the map that we looked at the beginning of January. So, I mean, we've been talking about it for a long time. So I think it's really time to get the geography agreed to. And then there's a tremendous amount of work to do fine tuning it, looking property by property to understand really what makes sense.
May I make a suggestion? I think Mark had a couple of other areas to look at. It might be worth looking at all the geographies that he mentioned
Yeah.
first.
I don't know
Because
how
I
you-
want to show you how, on a quick model this afternoon, they work together. And I think you need to understand the geographies before I show you that.
I agree. I mean, I don't think you can look at one in a vacuum without looking at all the options and then winnowing it down from that.
So do you want to hold on your motion?
I will withdraw my motion.
Okay, and do you want to hear from the public person before I go to the next
I think we
section?
should do all of them first.
Let's do them all.
Okay.
And
And then ask for questions. Okay, so the,
Hands raised,
so the
so.
second one, why don't we go to Valentine and Summer? So Valentine and Summer is an area that was also discussed previously. That had been, most of the boundaries had been kind of reviewed before. It includes the larger apartment complex across from the train station, going down to the gas station. Does include one little property next door. And then kind of going up Summer Street, it includes a few properties across Summer Street and right around across the railroad tracks. So that is slightly more than 5 acres. I think it's closer to 6. So that is an area, and I believe you modeled that previously as well.
So just to be clear, this includes 10 and 12 Summer Street, correct?
Yes,
And the gas station,
and the gas station, and the gas station.
and 4 Beach,
And Stanley's,
and 4 Beach.
yes, the little house where the shop is.
I just think it's helpful for people
Yes.
Oh,
And that
at home to
yes,
understand.
I don't know all the
Right.
the addresses and the names.
And I think too, Mark, if your acreage is working off this diagram, you've included some of the right of way that we snapped to the parcel line.
Mhm.
So we'll have slightly different acreage, but it is over its 5 acre minimum,
Okay.
which is the key piece for this area.
Mhm.
And it includes 34 Tappan.
34 Tappan is the
It's Valentine Wood versus.
Valentine, yeah, okay. Okay,
Could I just ask a quick question?
we're
or
gonna
make
hold
a-
questions till the end of this, and then you.
I know, but issue with that, honestly, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're going through different scenarios for the town, and
I'm sorry, we're gonna have to follow some rules here. We're gonna go through all of these districts, and then we're gonna open it up for questions on all of them. So,
vote.
Not wait until the end of the meeting.
just at the end of this presentation of the 4,
Okay, so
Okay.
you'll allow public comment before you vote?
yes, of course.
Okay, great, thank you for clarifying that, thank you.
Okay, so the next one is Summer Street, which is a portion of the larger,
Desmond.
Desmond going all the way up to Summer Street.
Wait, Desmond to Summer or Summer Street number 2?
It is Summer Street number, it's the one you have on the screen.
Beautiful. Thank you, sorry for
But
interrupting.
originally, there was a much larger one that went all the way from the apartments, was it Desmond Street?
Yes.
Yeah, it does.
All the way across the Cricket, included the Cricket property,
Right,
some of
the
the houses
Verizon.
on Norwood Street,
This one.
all the way up to this section of Summer Street, including the some of the properties here. So in trying to get a 5 acre piece, because we had a lot of concern about the Cricket property and the Verizon property next door being large vacant properties or that could be easily redeveloped for a large number of units, I tried to figure out, was there 5 acres to the west where the Desmond Street apartments were, and I couldn't get 5 acres over there because you'd have to run up and include a lot of Norwood Street, which people were objected to, or go into the historic districts, whether it's the National Register district or the local district. It just didn't work. So I started playing around with looking at from the Verizon property this way, and the issue with that is that there's the street just at the bottom of this, Allen Street, which is a little
Office building.
nice little neighborhood, and so I wanted to kind of stay out of that. It was suggested by some people to stay out of there, but but they wanted to include the condos at the end of Brook Street because that's already a dense, nice little development that probably will never get redeveloped. You also have some other lots along Summer Street that you can include that aren't very large, which is why it kind of meanders and stays away from the biggest properties, which could be, 20, 30 acre, 30 unit built properties. And then it goes up to include the gas station. And that acreage is almost, again, 6 acres. I got about 5.7 something, so.
It includes this L-shaped building is where the vet is?
Yeah.
Dr. Lamb is? Okay.
That's also condo.
And
Yes.
this, Emily, this is your Summer Street number 2 when we're this.
Which is actually Mark Summer Street number 2.
Two.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't.
But when we look at the scenarios,
Yes.
that's what I'm.
Yeah, I didn't title it the same as the files
Mine
title.
says Summer Street, it doesn't say Summer Street number 2.
Yeah, the PDF is called Summer Street number 2, that's why I was asking,
Yeah,
but
I
I think
didn't-
it's the same, it's the same thing.
Oh, okay.
That's what's there.
Just to clarify, the building that is in the area in the top right, that's
The
gas
gas.
station, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
That's
That's
this
the
one.
last property.
Okay.
And then it
That's the base
includes
of Lincoln Street
the
right there.
condos on Lincoln Street, like Manchester, where Manchester Electric is,
Yep.
that clump.
Yep.
I believe that's correct. The clump that's next to the parking lot to the school.
Okay,
Okay. And then so if you look, let's say we voted to approve these three districts that we were talking about, first off, I think there's a large baseline number of units here. And so that the incremental increase in each of these would be fairly minimal. And many of these properties wouldn't be developed because they're condominiums or other types of properties that would be really difficult, even though the quote zoning would allow it. So that's why I think if ideally looking at what might pass town meeting, I think these are more realistic, or, assuming the technical modeling works out. So that leaves about 2 5-acre plus 21, 20, leaves about, 6, 7 acres left. So I looked at the LCD district, and instead of using the MAC property or the medical building property, because both properties serve public purposes in the community, one for recreation, one for medical services, both of which are not, something similar is not located nearby. So I looked back at the, behind there's storage facilities on 2 different parcels, which total of close to 9 acres. They have some development constraints, but I don't believe they would technically be excluded by the state, but that's why
We'll talk
Emily's
in a
here.
second.
That's why Emily's here, so. So I propose that this, one or both, depending on the size we would need for compliance, be kind of counted as our third, as the fourth section.
So the one with all the buildings is Cape Ann Storage, the Brady property. What's the other building?
It's another storage warehouse building. It looks like it's a single user. I don't know whose it is. He owns both? Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, they're both. Is there any chance that our total
That's
is
the
taking
newer
us
one.
up over 43 acres and in trouble for contiguity?
Wait, we don't want to do that.
Well, you can, so the larger property is slightly over 6 acres.
Okay.
So,
And
I mean, that's why I
And the
said
other one's, okay.
one or both,
Okay.
depending upon what we need for size.
So here's my job of pouring cold water on the idea.
Yes.
It's so much fun to be a consultant, let me tell you. We actually have a little bit of a puzzle on this because we went in to model it this afternoon, and my colleague came to me and said it's modeling at 0 units. Why is it modeling at 0 units? So we went in to the model and saw that it is a good portion of it is marked as non-public excluded land. But when we looked at the overlay on the map, it was not showing as excluded land. So we have a big question mark on this, and unfortunately, because we were doing it this afternoon, we haven't had a chance to resolve it. So if we can put this as a possible to one side, so we can have a chance to research and maybe reach out to, we're in touch with the people who created the shape files for this and find out what's going on with that. I think that would be helpful.
because this is privately owned land.
Yeah, we did not see any, we looked at the ownership, we did not see any reason why this would be non-public excluded land. So as I said, it's not mapped at that, but it was coming up in the formula. So we just want to double check and see if there's something weird going on.
Well,
that's
several
all.
of the abutting properties are.
They are, yeah.
Are
So-
just that. Well, no, they're owned by
Trustees.
trustees.
Yeah. So we were wondering, did it get coded wrong somewhere? So it's a mystery. I'm not saying that it can't be done, but it just, for purposes of today's conversation, it was a little
That's
bit of a
lukewarm
mystery.
water, not cold water.
Lukewarm water, right? The ice cubes are melting. But it's still a little
If
chill,
if we
yes.
could not use those parcels, what's the next smallest parcel we can use?
It would probably be MAC
Yeah.
or I don't know which is bigger, the MAC or the medical building?
Medical
Medical
building
building is
smaller.
about, medical building smaller, and Utopia is only 4.5
No,
acres.
medical building's larger. Medical building is 13 and MAC is 10.
Ah, okay.
I mean,
And then there's
there's
Utopia.
also
Well,
the-
and then there's Utopia,
The
which
garden
is,
center site,
doesn't
which
make
is
it
about 4+ acres.
You need
Yeah,
5
4.5.
though, so it's gonna have
but
to be
there are
with
a couple
something.
parcels that across the street from it that would get you to the
Okay.
5.
Oh.
I'm sure it certainly would not be developable, however.
Those, right.
That's what we like.
Yeah, the couple of acres are listed as,
It's long and thin and.
Oh,
yeah.
It runs along Atwater
Yeah.
for quite a ways.
And it's adjacent to ecologically sensitive land.
Okay, so, we want to talk about, is the capacity involved in it?
So you know the storage unit's 0, right? So we did D2 and G. We had, actually, we did summer number 2, but we also added Desmond number 1, which you did not mention, Mark. I don't know if you want to talk about Desmond number 1,
What
which
is
is,
this?
or
it's
just
this
Desmond
one?
Street on yours.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, that was sent over in
Yeah.
your original email.
Oh, so I did send that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the one that includes the cricket building, okay.
Yeah.
And which I'm not recommending that we.
But we can see what it
do.
looks like, so,
Because
yeah.
why,
exactly.
why bother? We don't like it.
I'm going to show you why you want to see what it does. I'm not saying that means you have to do anything with it. It just, we modeled it because it came over, so here's what it does. So we modeled, let's just say 1A, not 1B, Newport Park, Pine Street, Moore Sawmill, Powder House. You're familiar with all of those. We added in Desmond number 1, Summer number 2, and Valentine to Summer, which we've just seen.
I just want clarification. We've got 2 maps here.
Yes.
We've got Desmond Street and we've got Desmond to Summer. Which is Desmond number 1?
Desmond Street.
Okay.
And then Summer number 2 is your Summer Street. And this is under the parameters here. This is completely compliant in geography, unit capacity, density. Now, I'm not saying that you want to do that. I'm just noting for the record that it does meet all of the requirements.
So this does not need the LCD.
This does not need the
This is
LCD.
this is the no
But it's
LCD
631 units.
Well, yeah, but that's because we
Okay.
didn't do anything to the
Okay.
existing,
Yep.
you know, we've
Yeah.
got
No
these,
fun.
yeah.
We can
That
make
is
it.
without fine tuning.
That is without exactly. You have a geographically compliant district without fine tuning. You could probably fine tune it downward somewhat. It does, however, put the entire unit capacity into the half-mile radius, so something to think about there. Mark and I talked about, and again, this was actually today, so we could not execute on this yet. But we've talked about, I think, res density before that shows the current density. We did want to take some time to go out and see what the existing unit count is in this area, in these areas, as a comparison to what the capacity is. So that's still
Yes.
out there. For example, Powder House and Elm Street, some of the earlier scenarios I had shown you bumped the dwelling units per acre, the density, up to its existing density. This does not do that. So this model here. So again, to your point, we can fine tune this if this geography is of interest. So
How do you fine tune the cricket building?
So I would look at that from, let's see, that was on Desmond Street, right? This is a cricket building?
This is
the
on
large one?
Desmond 1.
Mhm.
Desmond 1. So I would be going into the model, I would look at what it generates under the dimensional standards that we're testing. I would experiment with some other tests. I would see whether or not there's, so we have to modify it by, just for the people listening in, the dimensional standards would be by sub-district, so this would be a sub-district by itself. And I would see, if we modify those dimensional standards, what does that do for the tested capacity and density here? And then put it back into this and see what does that do with the rest of the districts.
On the surface, that's 40 units.
Right. So, right now Desmond is modeling out at 131 units, but that's without any sort of fine tuning to that unit capacity. So that's where I would go into that sub-district and say, can I bring that model down? Can I,
Realistically, that's a large part of the district.
yes,
And
absolutely.
a large part of the rest of the district are small lots.
Mhm.
There's no way you're gonna get the Cricket building down below 15 units per acre.
Probably not, no. But again, it's not just, you could get, just for, general purposes here, you can bring an individual district below 15 units per acre, as Powder House Elm Street is now. The key is, what does that do to the average? And so that's what we would be looking for, is what does that do to the average, so.
But we
sorry,
could
Mrs. Lynn.
increase Powder House Elm Street.
Exactly, so if you increase Powder House Elm Street, you can potentially decrease another district. That's where the fine tuning comes in, and that's where, to Richard's point earlier, the looking at the district by district basis, that comes in, so.
My only concern pertains to Valentine to Summer for a couple of reasons. The first of which is
Just pull up the map.
it's a fairly constrained, there's the, C Street is one way, Tappan is pretty narrow, and
Actually, C Street's two-way there.
It's two-way there.
it's two-way to it, yeah, but coming the other way.
From Summer to
Okay.
Tappan is two-way.
But my concern is, I don't know how to say this politically correctly, but I'll give it a
Spit
shot.
it out.
If the goal of this committee is to try to retain the character of the town, which almost by definition is to try to minimize the impact of 40A, I think of all the sites we've looked at, that's the most viable for development. And, the question is, how much can you jam on that site? And what's the impact on the character of the town? All the other ones, small lots, not really necessarily as close to the train station as that site. And if you had to pick one site or one of the parcels, that would be the one that I think will attract the fastest development.
But they're
So
small
I-
parcels.
I'm sorry?
They're small parcels.
Well, it's not,
I mean,
well, it's 5+ acres.
Total, but a big chunk of it is those 10, 12 Summer, which is already developed.
Well, I'd be curious to know what the density, what is, how does that work? You've got, I think that the Summers, what, 10 to 12 Summers, like 12 units to the acre, something like
Well,
that?
the condos
no,
are, but the apartment
more than
building is
15.
well over, so that whole lot averages 15. And it gets there because the apartment building is up around 19, is my recollection.
Yeah.
And the townhomes are down around 8, as you'd expect them to be.
Okay, so,
and how many acres is it of the total parcel? That's the 10, 12 Summer, does anybody know? What,
I
3?
can't tell from
I
this.
don't remember. It's
It's over half.
Yeah, it's
And again, this works out to being something that is compliant within the entire half-mile radius, right? It's nothing beyond that. But that, again, means you have options. So you can go further outside the radius and reduce the unit capacity or the density within the radius, within the mathematical requirements. But we hadn't actually found an option yet that was geographically and potentially unit capacity and density compliant within the district. So now it's possible. That may not be the choice that you want to make. So that's just something to keep in mind.
But to your point, no matter what happened there, the number of units would not be a huge increase.
so the incremental change would be less abrupt than it might be in other places.
Except for where the gas station is.
The gas station, but
That could have,
that
that's a
might
half
be a
an
good
acre.
thing.
What?
That might be a good change.
It's still only half an acre.
Right, so 7 units.
Yeah.
Max.
Yeah,
yeah.
so
Which
7
isn't-
units right there doesn't sound so horrible.
Right.
Okay, shall we open it up for some public comment?
Yeah, stop sharing so that people can.
I can't see the,
I
I
can
wonder
see.
if it would be useful to have the scenario up there, because that is the no LCD scenario, and it's kind of interesting.
Yes, let me put that back up there and.
If she does that, I'm not gonna be able to see the people.
I can, yeah, I can see the names.
if you click on participants, it'll show you.
I've got the participants at the top.
But if you click on the
Let's see what the questions are, and then maybe
Yeah.
if we
I can
have to
share as needed, yes, I think that makes sense.
Sarah Pierce has her hand up.
Okay, Sarah?
Hi, sorry. Yes, Sarah Pierce, 9 Front Street. I have 2 questions. One is, have there been or are there going to be any traffic studies on the areas you decide on at some point before this is sent in? I just don't, I'm really concerned between the cell signaling traffic, the pending 40B development on Shingle Place Hill, and then 557 units, whether they're built right away, depending on where they're zoned, is a concern. So I'm wondering, has there been a traffic study or will there be one done before this is put to the state? And the other question is, it's been pretty much said all along that we were going to have public forums. And I know that you had a zoning 101, but that was more about zoning districts where people lived. And I don't think there's been an opportunity for the public to really see these plans. And I know that it's been said by someone on the planning board, I believe Ron said, well, we're out of time. I don't think that's a realistic reason to move forward with such a massive zoning change because we're out of time. Like, I think the state needs to be contacted and maybe we express, we've had a huge, company that is coming to our town and that has taken up a lot of the board's time. We don't have extra officials to deal with all these different projects. The 40B was a huge undertaking. And I just think that with these 3 combined projects that we could really change Manchester for the worse very quickly. So I'm just wanted to make that comment and question about when are these public forums happening so the public can view these, and not by going on the town site. That's not a public forum. That's just going to a website where you can't ask questions and get answers. And then the traffic study. So I'm wondering if someone could answer that for me.
I'll try to answer the first, your comment about a traffic study for 559 units.
For 557, all right.
Whatever the number is, there's a huge misconception, which I hope I can explain carefully here. By rezoning areas that are already developed with residential use, it's not that there are going to be 559 new units. There are going to be a number of units, but incremental units in addition to what's already there. And that number is not 559.
But the number 2 zone for is 559. So whether
the zoning is not telling you how many units are going to be built. It just says what are allowed by right. If you have a 3-family house and we're rezoning it to allow 4 families on it, then that's 1 additional unit that's going to be incremental with the zoning. So you're not going to need a traffic study for 1 additional unit. I'm being facetious here. But
right, I understand that.
We don't really know until the zoning is in place and people come forward with proposals. We're not going to ask for a traffic study for somebody converting a 2-family to a 3-family. If somebody comes in with a proposal for 100 units on a site that allows 100 units, then yes, we can ask for a traffic study. But you can't do a generic one for all over the downtown for some unknown number of incremental units that are going to be created theoretically at some future point by zoning.
Well, I mean, theoretically, it wasn't going to happen in Beverly, and it definitely, I can't
Okay,
say what,
I'm sorry, let me answer your other question. The other question.
so there's no traffic study, just to be clear, just so I know.
There is no traffic study, no.
Okay,
And your second question, yes, we're gonna have as many community forums as we can fit in. If I had my druthers, and I think we should do it, is have a community forum on each of these districts. And so people who are affected in each district can come and talk about what their concerns are.
and that would be before they're obviously submitted.
Yes, that'll be over the next couple of months.
Okay, all right, yeah, thank you. Thank you for answering my questions.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mike has his hand up, but I think we're not supposed to have
Yeah, I had
back and
a-
forth,
I'm
right?
sorry, we'll try to avoid the back and forth. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh,
In your case.
Yeah, I just had a follow up to your point there, Chris. At some point, will we know that really the more important number, it's the delta, right? It's the incremental.
Yes.
In other
Yes,
words,
that's
to
right.
use your extreme example, if we permitted an empty lot that could build 555, then the incremental in that example would be 555. And the flip
Correct.
side is if you permitted 555 on a plot that already had 555, then the incremental is 0, right? So
That's right,
at some
exactly.
point, will we know the incremental number?
Yes, we will. In fact, that's going to be critical. And I think it's something that when we go to the planning board, we're going to have those numbers available to discuss with the planning board. So we'll be able to know, for example, for the Pine Street area, how many units are there now and how many could possibly be developed there with the new zoning.
Right, so so just to be clear, right now, we don't have a feel for that incremental number?
No, because we haven't got the geography pinned down yet, so it's kind of a sort of difficult to know. But now, as of right now, if we could probably do each of these districts and tell you, but we just don't have the data in front of us right now.
Next hand is Curtis Rising.
Mr.
Hi.
Eisen.
Hi, this is Curtis Rising, 16 Front Street. I've written 2 letters to the task force and asked questions at the forum at the high school. Just speaking about, I was on Concom thinking about the Elm Street Powder House area. First, there are clear Wetlands Protection Act riverfront prohibitions that extend up to 200 feet from the river, which is Sawmill Brook into the channel, and I think that has to be factored in considering the Elm Powder House area. So without that, I think it's meaningless to include it unless you've really considered it, and I think Concom would have, clarity on that. The second piece is from a building on lot, it looks low density, that Elm Street Powder House, but there's a 24-unit apartment building and a 5-unit apartment building and commercial properties that all require huge amounts of parking. So a lot of the empty space there is parking. So between that parking and the riverfront protections of 200 feet all along that side, I'm just really asking the question, how would you add to it without, you really couldn't, is my perspective. So I want to bring it to your attention.
That's our goal.
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
Well,
Emily,
it could be your goal, but let me be clear that the kinds of approaches that Concom takes to these is it has to be factored in, or frankly, this is not a real proposal. So that's my observation, and just want to kind of leave it there. I think the other thing I've voiced before is I think District D, or kind of south of the railroad tracks, I think if we're considering the most dense parts of town for further density, I know that there's a perspective on this from the task force. It really bothers me that the District D isn't even considered at all. And to me, I think that's going to be challenged if this were to move forward as a proposal without that. Because there's a lot of taxing that would go on in terms of already dense areas that I think, looking at that half-mile radius, there's half of it that isn't really even on in that proposal. So those are my two areas.
Okay.
So Curtis, I'm going to address the Wetlands Protection Act. I know you know this, but for people who aren't familiar with how this works. So zoning, we've already talked about the fact that zoning isn't production, but it's also important to understand that state laws such as the Wetland Protection Act are still in full force and effect. So zoning gives a property owner the right to do something on their property, depending on what that zoning is. They don't have to do it, but they can take advantage of it. In the case of this, where we're looking at an overlay district, they have the advantage of either doing the base zoning or using the overlay zoning. But whichever one they might choose to use if they decide to do something with their property, as I said, state laws such as the Wetlands Protection Act still exists. That's outside of zoning. That is under the purview of the Conservation Commission, as you know, and not of the Planning Board. So anybody coming in who is subject to that would still be subject to that.
And the second point about parking, there's no relaxing of the parking requirement. So any residential development is going to have to comply with the zoning bylaw, which is 1.5 spaces per unit. And I don't think we're going to change it, but if we do, it'll be part of the new language that people can comment on. But there's no relaxing or relieving of a parking requirement under the zoning.
Nobody else has a hand raised.
Well, Mary's got her hand raised.
I have 4 quick questions. Should I ask them one by one or?
Sure, one by one's fine.
So I think Mike Pratt mentioned my first point about the delta, so hopefully you'll get that data. And the follow-on to that would be for each of the proposals, what is the actual unit per acre that it calculates out to be?
You can do that
So-
also.
Yeah, again, if you're using 6,000 acre lots, that actually calculates out to 22 per acre if it's all 6,000.
So the question is, do you want existing density or the allowed density?
Allowed.
Allowed density, okay.
We can show that on a parcel by
I
parcel
think that would be
basis.
helpful, thank you. Newport Park was in and then it was out, now it's back in. Just wondering why that was, because I
So
thought it had to be excluded because.
we thought it was excluded land because it was deed restricted, but it turns out it's not. So it's a good idea to include it because it's got a tremendous amount of density already.
Okay.
It's not listed as excluded land on the map, so.
And then only because the Pine Street number 2, the lines look funny where it skirts around houses on the street to go further out up. I'm just wondering why those front houses aren't included.
The historic district on Central Street.
Is that a historic district?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that where the line is?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
So it eliminates all the first parcel on Central.
and I want to reiterate an important guiding principle that we have, which is the reason we're picking small lots, areas with small lots is because that reduces the size of potential projects. So if we have a 2-acre lot in an E district, that can create a total of 30 units on it. Whereas a 6,000 square foot lot, you can do a 3-family. So to try to preserve the character of the town, we're trying to reduce the possibility of properties with 30 units on them and encourage 3 families as much as we can.
So I know you don't want to do back and forth, but I have a different philosophy on that. But then my last question was, has the task force met with Concom?
No, we have not.
Don't need to.
In fact, didn't we
We asked.
try to get a representative from Concom on the task force and they
Yes,
refused?
So they didn't exactly, yeah, they said they would prefer not to, yes.
But I think you made a very good point earlier, which is that nothing we do impinges on the Conservation Commission, on Concom's restrictions. We couldn't if we wanted to, and we don't want to.
And the more property we include that's subject to Concom jurisdiction, the less, fewer new units. And still comply with the model.
Okay, is there any other questions from the public?
Can be done.
Oh, yes.
Hi, I have two statements and one question.
Okay.
For the record,
I'll start
state your-
from the last.
Name and
While
address.
I wish the Concom was representing, I'm sorry, Caterina Gates, School Street in Desmond. And I wish that a member of the conservation was part of this whole plan, because it will appear much better, to the public anyway, that everything is considered. And I'm sorry, nobody volunteered from them. But going to the next, we live in an area on Desmond. I heard the name Desmond and I jumped. Oh, what is going on in Desmond other than the apartment buildings that we have there since the 72 year? Is there, that area is so dense, it's getting even worse day by day. Next door to us, they purchased the property, which was brought there in 1987. It was part of our property. And it was just to dry the cranberries for our owner who had a cranberry bog up School Street. And then eventually it became a home. And in 43, the current people who sold it were the owners since 1943. And now they're building another property on it. And they're putting, I was just downstairs, that's how we came. We didn't even think about the meeting tonight here. And we came to ask why they're taking so much space, Mr. Orlando, from the land there, because every time you have to do something in our area, you have to ask the conservation to allow you to do it because of the brook nearby, which is less than 200 feet from there, and so on. And he said that, well, they have no problem. They didn't see any problem with it. And the land is going to be, in my opinion, more than 50% taken by structure. And they're having, Mr. Orlando said, well, they're allowed, they left perimeters all around the building, so it all gets together to the amount. The plan that we have, I have all the records of theirs, and the plan that they had doesn't seem to be exactly what is actually dug down. And he told us that I haven't heard tonight, and I know the rule or the law that you have a 1.5 parking space per unit, right? So we asked, where are these people going to, park? Because every house seems to have 2 cars at least. And so they're building a garage for 2 cars, and another space will be assigned for it on the grounds. So we have already a lot of land taken because of the MBTA knowledge of this coming, and they're not even built yet. Whatever they're building there, one of them is just gutted completely, the old dwelling, and they're advertising the price and how beautiful they will be, but it's going to be so dense. So what more will be done on Desmond, if anything? Because there is no single tree other than our garden, in anybody's garden. Maybe they have on the sidewalk part, a plant or a tree, a small tree.
We
I don't
still
see
have
how
zoning that
anybody
requires
will
open
add
space.
anything.
Yeah, so only 40% of a lot can be built on? Well, actually, this is the
Yeah,
deed
for the
district.
50, yeah, he said 50% to us downstairs.
Well, I'm not quite sure, but
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
But all the areas there, all the structures there have taken most of the property.
So
So I don't see how anybody will think even of Desmond, other than the
Is
2
this a
properties
general
we
district?
have.
No,
it's a D1 district? Use general district?
it's number 3, Brook.
It's
It's an
It's 3 in
existing,
Desmond.
it's an existing 2-family, and they're enlarging, and it's
It
still
was
gonna be a
one, was
2-family.
one building with 2 apartments.
Okay, so they're not really increasing the
They're,
density.
oh yes, they are building another structure to put the other.
Yeah, but it's still 2 units.
Oh,
Yes.
That's why, that density is number of units, not how big the building.
Oh, it doesn't matter how much land they take, okay. But, so it takes all that. There is no other building no land on that side of the street or the other, that anybody can build anything.
Well, that's why we might zone it, because then we can build on it. That's the.
Our hope
No, I mean, they have taken the whole lot,
Yeah.
just the parking driveway a little bit, no
Yeah,
green,
so
nothing.
that building is safe. It's not gonna be,
Yeah, but the only ones that we have ourselves, they're the only ones that they are actually lots that can have something like that happen, which they will not, because hopefully we won't. But anyway, so
okay.
that going. The other is, I saw that you have Powder Hill area, and all that area there is flooding when the Zombie Brook is.
Yeah, again, that's not our concern.
Oh.
That's the Conservation Commission. We're just zoning it.
Yes.
When
but I'm saying, why
somebody
zone
wants to
something
develop
that
it,
is
they're
not-
gonna have to come and go to the Conservation Commission
Yeah.
and go through that approval process.
I think our hope is that we can zone and not necessarily have it developed. So that if it meets the zoning parameters in the compliance model, we're meeting the parameters of the law, but perhaps a large portion of the properties, in fact, can't be developed because Concom wouldn't approve it.
Yeah, I think
That's
from
the
what
goal.
my experiences are here in the past 40 years, if it's zoned, they build, you know?
No, the people have that idea. But in fact, everyone in the downtown could convert their single-family house to
I
a
know.
two-family right now.
Three family.
Yes,
And or
yes,
three-family, it
Three-family.
doesn't happen.
some of them
so.
have already done it on School
But a
Street.
two-family, certainly, they
Yeah.
could.
They could, if they had 3 parking spaces.
But there is also a piece of land on Summer Street, on the opposite side of the gas station, that there are acres and acres empty land.
But we're not gonna zone that, because then it'll get built on.
Because you'll wind up with a
I
huge
think, Mike, was that you, wanted to jump
But
in?
it's a private
No,
residence.
it's Curtis. I just have a quick comment.
Yes, sir.
Curtis Rising, 16 Friend Street. I just want to understand the only hard line, if you look at the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, as I think we were validating here, you cannot build in that 100, 200-foot buffer zone. So as much as we're saying, well, we're just going to rezone an area and it's the Concom's issue, I think with a hard line like riverfront protection, you can't really include that because it's meaningless rezoning. And I don't see how the state would accept a plan that has prohibited land as part of it.
So the state has created, what they call excluded land that doesn't allow us to zone it. So any land that's excluded, we can't include.
Right, you can include it.
We can
it's
include it, but it
it's
doesn't
not
count.
modeled. It
Yeah.
doesn't, it can't be
Right, so
modeled.
if you look at 200 feet from the river of
So
Sawmill
the
Brook
point is,
and
I'm
the
sorry,
channel,
Curtis, I'm sorry, we can't have this go back and forth, but let's just say that whether or not it can be actually built on isn't relevant to what we're trying to do. We're just doing zoning. We're not building buildings here.
And one other point is that the area along Sawmill Brook, those lots that we're including are already developed. And so they already have structures on them, so perhaps they might be able to get a permit to redevelop, or expand or go up and still comply with the Rivers Protection Act, the Wetlands Protection Act, flood control, flood plain ordinance. So they still could do that and still comply with the various bylaws. I mean, if we were zoning like a large undeveloped piece, then, and it was a long skinny piece along the riverfront, then as you pointed out, you may not be able to develop a large portion of it, even though you might be zoning it, so.
yeah. And I'm sorry, I apologize for the back and forth. I'm trying to be constructive and helpful. I think between wetlands and parking requirements, I just don't see that as a viable sub-district. So that's, I thank you for your help.
Any other? Okay,
Yeah, I just think there's a distinction no, there's no other people. There's a distinction between viability and meeting the minimum parameters of the law. Which is what we're attempting to do.
Yes, there seems to be a misunderstanding about the fact that if we zone something, we somehow magically make it buildable.
Right.
But we don't. And we have to, for purposes of the MBTA Act, zone along parcel lines. We can't cut across parcel lines, so that constrains us further.
Okay, so are we ready to take the next step, or we want to wait till the next meeting and vote on these districts?
I will say that if there's anything that you want us to model, get a proposed unit, existing unit, whatever numbers you need for the Monday meeting of the planning board, decisions that are made next Thursday does not give us a lot of time to do that work. So
No.
you absolutely have the right to change your mind at any time, but if there's things that we can be working on between now and then, that would be very helpful. And in fact, if you gave us some direction tonight, we could get you some of those numbers that were requested. We should be able to get to you before your next
I
meeting.
think it's important to have current density versus the delta.
The Delta, yes.
Yeah, and so I think she needs to know the properties in order to do that.
We weren't talking at all about the Gordon parcel.
We can do that now, I guess. Yeah, I was gonna do it later, but we can do it now.
Well, I'm talking about the purposes of modeling it.
Sure.
Well, there's really nothing to model
Well,
because it's empty land.
so we did have this meeting with Gordon College this morning. And I don't know, Denny, do you want to summarize the?
Well, I think they're interested in developing a portion of that land. And if you recall, the original, we gave them a non-binding letter of intent, which would allow them to develop a portion of the land in exchange for putting the balance of the land in conservation, the purpose of which was to protect the town water supply. Our meeting today, I had mentioned to them that we were concerned, initially the proposal was for 20 acres, see what that would look like. Our meeting today, I think we were really talking about 5 acres. And I'm sorry, something that would support 100 units, multifamily, which they would propose to be using in part as faculty housing, maybe even student housing. And if that's a price to protect our town water supply, I think we ought to be thinking at least how we might be able to make something happen there. And particularly if we could put the rest of the lands, they claim it's 140 acres. We could take 5 acres out of that, away from the vernal pools, away from the wetlands, and secure town water supply. That's not such a bad trade, and I think it's something we might want to consider. Right now, it's one parcel, and I asked Emily whether we could get away with. The issue there is, could we get it surveyed fast enough to be included? Whether we could get away with a meets and bounds description for the interim. So I think it's something to consider. I think it's a small price to pay for the future of our town water supply.
Question,
Yes.
is it our sense that they're going to go ahead and build some more faculty and student housing anyway?
They can't on that land.
Well,
It's not clear. Right now, they can't because it's LCD.
under the Dover Amendment, they might be able to get away with it.
Under the Dover Amendment, they could build housing if it was specifically and only for the college. So it doesn't sound, reading between the lines from the meeting, that sounds like they want a developer to come in, do housing, and that a certain portion of that would be reserved for their use, is kind of what I took out of that meeting. And I don't think they're looking to build the number of units that they'd have to build in order to extend the sewer line up there, because that would be very costly. And so you need the 100 units to be able to make that cost effective. So my concern with the Gordon property is that it's my ultimate goal in advising the committee and the planning board, and the town, is getting something that the town's going to approve next November. And that I think the direction that I'm proposed today will be a lot less controversial than if we took 10 acres. You kind of have to do close to 10 acres up there to get the 100+ units. And I think given the history with the 40B site, with what's like, there's some land protection issues just down the street, a big opposition group to another housing development or two in that area, that we may have a bit of an issue getting it passed. Now, it doesn't mean, and I pointed this out at the meeting today, is that we get a proposal forward, we work out the details with Gordon College, and we come back to a subsequent town meeting, and we change past town meeting to swap out one area for another area. So that is a possibility as well. But to rush the details, I think, and given the the controversy already with some open space properties in that area, that I'd be careful about doing that.
And tying it to
to
something that we
this.
absolutely have to get past.
Yeah, we have to get past. We have millions of dollars in state grant money that would get shut off. $3.5 million for the sewer line extension for CST, $1.5 million for harbor dredging, and Greg can probably run through a handful of other smaller grants, but those are the two biggest ones.
But you can rezone Gordon College separately and not even have it be involved in the
Yes.
MBT zoning at all. Have it
That's correct.
completely separate.
You could do a
Not muddy
separate,
the waters.
separate negotiation with them and
I just want to, I think I agree with you, but I do want to point out that 10 acres that we zoned in the LCD is 10 acres less that we have to rezone downtown. So that is the trade essentially.
Yep, and I think both have their issues.
And both, well, they all have issues.
Furthermore, we're still talking about some area in the LCD off of school, and that's close to another development that is controversial. It's not like that is without controversy. Also, am I correct that any subsequent change to our arrangements here might require a 2/3 vote instead of a 50% vote? How does that work? We only need 50% for approval. But what does it take in town meeting to make changes?
As long as it stays as housing, this is where your town council will come in, but as long as it stays at housing, my understanding is it's always a 51% vote.
I think we would need to run it by the municipal law unit and our town council,
Yeah, I
just to be absolutely
So it's
sure.
complicated.
It is complicated.
It's one of those that on the surface looks very easy.
But you can do the zoning for Gordon College without
That would still be-
impacting the MBTA
Yes, I
zoning
understand,
piece.
but obviously if we had our druthers and we were going to have housing out there, we'd like to have it take the pressure off of this. I mean, it may not be possible, but that would sure be nice.
Well, and also, I think it was Ann mentioned that there is water and sewer service already on Upper Pine.
Yeah, well, the
There's-
sewer-
I don't know how
No,
far
no
it
sewer,
goes.
there's water.
There's
There's
water,
water.
the sewer within a mile, but
Yeah.
there's water.
And the protection of the town's water resource is pretty important. I mean, that's an issue that's arisen many times in terms of objecting to development. So if there's a way to do it,
How does the choice that we make up there north of 128, how does those choices affect what we're doing down below? Because we've been talking about 5 acres here, 10 acres here, whatever, but that influences how we combine the parcels down in the middle of town.
What I wanted to point out is that the Gordon Woods area has been zoned for limited commercial for 30 years, maybe more. There've been 2 projects proposed there, neither of them succeeded. I don't think it's urgent right now that we change the zoning so that, and make a swap. I would really like to get our MBTA communities zoning focused on land that's not, where it isn't complicated. And I just see the Gordon College thing as being complicated.
Fair enough. So where does that leave us?
I have a question for Denny. When we originally began to talk about Gordon, when you began your conversations with them, the number I recall, maybe incorrectly, was that 20 acres was what they were looking at. Now you're talking about a number that's half that or a quarter of that. And that's, from my point of view, good news, because that means more land that goes to conservation. So are they, did I understand correctly and hear correctly, that they're ready to have a smaller portion devoted to development?
They expressed a willingness to do something around 100 units, which would be
7 acres.
say round numbers, say 7 acres.
Okay, so much smaller than the 20 acres that was
Much
originally
smaller.
discussed.
You know, we expressed concern that 300 units was going to be a non-starter.
So do we get back to this
Yeah, so,
geography stuff?
okay, does somebody want to make a motion, do something here?
May I ask a question about the Gordon, not the property there? It's just something that for a long time is going on.
I think we're done.
It's just up School Street. And I
Curtis
thought
is
maybe
the same
that could be included
Well, we are considering something up School
It's
Street as well.
on the Gordon.
Gordon is on time.
Because the Baptist church
She has her
is
hand
trying to build a church, which is a ridiculous thing in my opinion.
Yep,
And it's very un-Christian, what I'm saying probably. But, we have wonderful churches and they don't pay taxes to the town, so
well, yes,
maybe they
I,
can do it for housing there, have a.
well, okay, well, thank you for that. Yes, Cindy.
I just to wrap up the discussion about Gordon before we go on to the geography, I mean, Denny's been having these conversations. Is it should he get the support of this group to continue the conversations?
Let's talk about the geography first and see if that fits into the geography.
I think the answer, it's a general answer is yes, it's
Yes.
a deal to be done, whether or not it's under the MBTA. can be
Yes,
done.
okay.
I would like first to say that I would like the mystery of the storage properties to be clarified.
And I was going to suggest that you could, I think you've got kind of 3 possibilities outside your radius that are still open, right? We've been talking about the MAC and the medical center. We've got storage properties and the mystery around there. You have Gordon College. I think those could continue to proceed a little bit on parallel paths, maybe.
Mhm.
You want to do something outside the circle, which one it is. Or you have talked in the past that you want to do something outside the radius, which one it is, could be left open a little while longer. But give us a chance to look into the storage properties and see what's going on there. We could continue to keep them in our mix for that. So yeah, I think that's something that we could continue to look into for you.
But I also think it makes a difference how much acreage
It does.
we have downtown
Yes.
to know what we want to consider in the LCD. Because we don't want to consider the medical center and the MAC at 23
Right.
acres if we
Yes.
have more than that downtown. We want to cross stuff off.
And you could say, hey, the medical center and MAC is now out. We've got 2 other options to go into. I mean, I think that would also be a perfectly reasonable thing for you to consider tonight.
I for one, we have been talking about this area of Powder House Lane,
Pine Street number 2.
Pine Street, right, Pine Street number 2 for a very long time. And as long, given the assumption that we have the ability to tweak by individual parcels and go, I would like at least to say, I'm not sure about the other properties, but this has so many advantages in terms of not touching the historic district, in terms of being, for the most part, unless we get wild with the total acreage, we satisfy the contiguity requirement. There is already a lot of building there, that can be essentially protected to some degree by the zoning. So I would really like to get a vote of the group tonight that says this geographic area, not necessarily exactly how it's been modeled, certainly not that, but that this geographic area is core to what we're.
Is that a motion?
Yes, so moved.
Could it be simplified a little bit to say that we endorse Pine Street number 2
Sure, go for it, Ann, thank
Geographic
you.
area?
as a geographic area?
Overlay, as an overlay district.
That
Yes.
was presenting to the planning
That
board.
would be presenting to the planning board. Okay, that's sort of an amended motion, but we're,
I second Ann's amended motion. If I can do that, can I do it?
any discussion on the motion? Then I guess we should vote it. All in favor?
You gotta ask Mike too.
Mike, how do you vote on this?
I vote no.
Okay. So it's,
So
Richard?
can we count
Yeah,
again?
you gotta do
Yeah.
oh, you want to do a roll call?
You have to,
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
guys are.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, so Mike says no.
I say yes.
Jenny,
Yes.
I'm abstaining.
abstaining. Okay, Sarah,
Yes.
Sue,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes also. Okay, we're gonna move on to I guess we should tally the vote. What is your vote?
611.
611.
That's what I had.
Since Gail is with us. Okay, you want to go into our next district? You want to feel strongly about any of these other districts, if we want to definitely include them?
So this is not closed, I'll put them back up on the screen as you're talking about them.
I don't think it's necessary. I think we've got
That's fine.
pictures in front of us.
I move that we endorse the district described as Valentine and Summer
I'll second it.
as a geographic district,
Overlay district.
overlay district.
I think overlay is important to
Yes.
confirm with people, yes.
May I comment on the motion?
Yeah. Well, it hasn't been second. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I
Sarah
seconded it.
second. I pushed hard to get this considered originally. And the more I think about it, we cannot do special permits in an MBTA zone. And effectively, we cannot mandate, first floor commercial. We can't do a mandatory mixed-use district. Because that really totally turns the control over to the state. So I don't know. I mean, it's a pretty important part of downtown. And I would feel much more comfortable with a special permit where there is a process of negotiation between the town and whomever might develop it.
Which section are you concerned about?
Really the whole thing. I mean, Stanley's,
In the gas station.
and the gas station, and the little house next to the gas station.
Or beach.
Yeah.
I think there's room to exclude Four Beach and still have a size, an adequate geography.
0.15.
When we went through this mapping exercise the last time, we fell just short, and there was a question about including streets to the midpoint
Yes.
and using that as a standard. I think your comment was that we can do that if we use that throughout the measurement.
If you don't use that in your existing zoning now. So we did not use that. You have to be consistent with how you measure the districts, but it's not the way you currently measure your districts.
But could we, for the purposes of this overlay, consistently measure all the MBTA overlays to the midpoint of the street?
I'm not sure I can answer that. Because you have not done that in the past, I honestly don't know if HLC would look at it and say, isn't it interesting that you measured it this way for MBTA, but you don't do it for any of your other districts? So,
I would propose that if we do vote on this, we might want to do it with the stipulation that we reduce it to the smallest size that we can based upon whatever is available.
Well,
it's
this
currently
is-
modeled at 5.1 acres. That's what we have in the model now, based not on this, but on the geography where we have snapped it to the parcel lines, except when we're crossing streets. And that's how we've consistently modeled it based on your current zoning practice.
So the streets only count when the zone goes across the street?
In the way we've modeled it now, yes, we've modeled it to the parcel lines.
Okay.
That also, incidentally, including the center line of the street also has implications for density, right? Because,
Makes
so.
density lower.
Yeah, but it doesn't have any effect.
I mean, sorry,
any appreciable
the
effect on-
parcel size, yeah, it's excluded land, so you're right, Richard, I misspoke. It doesn't affect the density, it does affect the district size, because streets counts as excluded land.
It's a very close thing, this district, and the ability to get rid of that property might depend on it, or we might even get it out now. It was very close, so.
It's 0.15, and she's saying this is coming in at 5.1, so.
I didn't take it out to 2 or 3 decimal places, so I could look at
Okay, so
And Sarah, I have a question for you, because this, I'm looking at the map that Mark handed out, and the parcel on the corner of C and Tappan
Yeah.
is something you were expressed concern about.
Well, there's 2 parcels there. There's the
The
Valentine
Valentine, right,
Movers, and then there's a small parcel.
on the corner.
Which is owned by the people who live across the street.
I can tell you that you absolutely can't get there without those, because you'll notice that one of the things that happens when you draw the lines that way is you pick up a bunch of street. And that area, without that area, you won't get to 5.
Do you have parcels that you could add in place of the ones that you replaced, or is that drawn very, very tightly?
I think it's drawn very tightly.
Yeah, that was my impression, but
Otherwise, you wind up going up Union Street, and there's some historic properties there you wouldn't want.
You
You
could
could
include
go down-
cars,
you
you
could
could
go down
include
Tappan.
cars building.
You could include cars,
Yeah,
though.
But that runs into precisely the objection we just had.
Okay.
Right.
On the fact that we are putting it in an overlay district doesn't mean that there can't be retail on the.
Of course, that's right.
Right, exactly.
So if someone were to build on the Ridgedale site, it would be possible for them to make it.
It wouldn't be forbidden,
But
but we'd have no basis to encourage.
We can give incentives.
Ah, okay.
We can give incentives to encourage retail in a sub-district,
yes, absolutely.
which would include Stanley's and the gas station.
Yeah, we could do that.
If
We
we,
could say that you could maintain the density allowed with a retail underneath it.
if we do that, we will, I think, be looking at a 2/3 vote.
For that, so that might be a second article.
Well,
incentives?
we need to get clarity on that also.
True.
If each article can be considered a different quantum of vote. We need clarity on that before we assume that
Yes, the answer is yes,
it can.
yes. They had so they talked about that yesterday. There was a,
I didn't
Mass
hear that.
Municipal.
Okay.
oh yeah, they talked about if you're doing other things that you want to require, and that would require a 2/3 vote.
Oh, right, okay.
So
That's how I
You
understood
have
it.
to
There was
separate
language
things.
that-
it would have to be a separate article.
Right.
Unless you want your
Incentives
entire
aren't a
MD,
requirement.
MBTA district to go to 2/3, which I don't think. any
So
community-
this is why I think you should speak to town
Yeah.
council, because I have heard from another town council, if you remember which community it was, and I blanked, but that mixed use is allowed with the 51% vote. So I totally agree with you, and you should check with the town council that you have, because they're the ones who's gonna have to defend it at town meeting.
Right.
But we should do that maybe sooner rather than later, because it will affect not just, what we write, but how we write it. I am working with other communities where we're talking about 2 articles, maybe one for a base district and one for something that's additional. And so, yes.
So we could include this without a possibility of adding incentives. And that would be a 51% or 50+%.
Yes.
And then as a separate article at the same meeting, say, because this is in our very commercial area, we would like to allow and provide incentives for.
I think it would be allowed anyway, would it not? Because commercial's allowed anyway in the.
Under the base district. So this, I think, is maybe really important for the public to understand, is if you have a base district and an overlay district, the property owner can choose to either apply under the base district, in which case all of the base district rules apply, or apply under the overlay, in which case all the overlay rules apply. But what they can't do is say, like a little piece of the base district, and a little piece of the overlay, and put it together. So I think
So,
that's
but we
really.
could allow retail use on the first floor in sub-districts within the MBTA district.
Absolutely, yes, you're allowed to have mixed use. That is not any sort of prohibition from 3A, but it does go into
You
the
can't
quantum of
mandate
You
vote.
can't require.
And you can't mandate it, absolutely.
If we were to do that or plan to do that, does that have to go before the EOHLC as part of their approval process?
As if you are doing it as part of the MBTA district, yes, that would have to be part of what you submit to HLC. Yeah,
I thought so.
no, you're correct.
I look at this, I don't like doing any of this rezoning in the central district, as you all know. This looks like a very low impact to me.
So I have a worry, I mean, as I said before, I walk this every day, and there are homes along here. So there's the 1, 2 homes, the one that's blue that used to be pink, and then there's a white one right close to the railroad tracks.
Yep.
And then there's Jay's garage on that side of the street. And then there's that tiny little house on the other side of the street, just over the tracks. And I know there's homes everywhere, but those homes are sort of included in all this other that are not homes. And we're including them so that we can get the Valentine property and some of the other commercial space and the Summer Street section, which is already dense. So it's hard to weigh that, I guess.
So I will say this, that one of the houses the lot is too small to do more than 3 units anyway, and they can do that by right now if they wanted to make it a 3-family. The other one is more interesting, but that site is sunk down and doesn't have very good access. I don't know how that would get redone. The electric building, I can't imagine that ever. The electric
transformer
substation.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So I think in terms of all the other districts that we're creating, this is pretty minor, as Richard was saying.
My reaction to that is, you could say that about
I know.
20 houses in the
Yeah.
one we just looked at.
Yeah,
I don't
I know.
think, I don't see
Okay.
why we would be concerned about houses in this area if we're not concerned about houses in all the areas, is my sense.
I am concerned about houses in other areas.
right,
But
Yeah.
the
But I see your point, yes.
Hopefully, sub-districts will help us solve some of these problems.
Possibly, yeah. Any other discussion on this?
So we got a
We have a
motion.
motion and a second, so I guess we can vote on this. So Sandy,
Oh, boy, don't start with me. Yes, I will say yes.
Dennis,
Persuaded by the arguments.
Dennison,
You'd ask me to vote, or you?
Oh.
No.
you say no. Richard,
Yes.
Sarah,
yes.
Sue,
Yes.
Yes.
and says yes. Michael,
No,
and I say yes. So how's that come out?
620.
Yes.
Very old habits die hard.
Okay. The next one is Summer Street.
Easy.
Hmm.
Since I seem to be doing it, I move that we endorse an overlay district, following the lines drawn on the plan, labeled Summer Street.
Summer Street 2.
Yes.
The plan is labeled Summer Street.
Plans labeled Summer
March
Street.
12th.
March
Dated
12th.
Mhm.
Do I hear a second on that one?
I'll second.
Zero seconds. Okay.
How big are the largest lots in this section?
The largest,
Ones along Summer Street.
The ones along Summer Street,
Tell you in a minute.
oh, those 4 lots?
the largest is probably the gas station.
No. Oh, yeah, yep, it does look the largest, and that's not very big.
Well,
This one's pretty big too.
where the pet place is, that's pretty big.
Yeah, but the pet place is it's a condo,
So there's multiple owners.
so there are multiple owners.
Still pretty steep.
Gas station.
The ones on Summer Street, on the right side of this, the land is very steep behind them.
Yes.
But we can blast.
Not that, those are really steep.
It's really steep, yeah.
There's a if you don't mind me interrupting, there's a condo at 0.47 acres. There is a office building at 0.36 acres. Those are, and there is a condo at 0.4 acres. Those seem to
And
be
how big is the
low.
gas station?
0.46.
0.46?
Yeah.
It's almost a half an acre.
So there's 2 on the other side of the street on the hill there,
0.44, yeah.
perched on the hill. They're also in the neighborhood of the half acre, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah, there's one. This one.
0.3 is the biggest. That's the one closest to the gas station. Next one down is,
What about this one?
I think that's the 0.3. Yeah. That one is 0.3. This one is,
You've got 3 that are at a 1/4 acre as well, and that's about it.
Is this only one?
yeah,
Any
That's all
discussion
one.
on
That's
this?
the
that's all
biggest.
one, yeah.
That is the biggest.
Just
That's,
mowing, I
that
guess.
has some, those condos at 66 somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the largest at
Okay,
0.47.
yeah, that's the largest parcel, but it's already, yeah, it says condos.
But where the dentist's office is appears to be one.
That's condos.
Is
All
that,
condos.
is that 76 Summer Street?
Yes,
Is that where the
76.
dentist is?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
66. The dentist is at
66.
66.
The condo we just talked about was 76.
Oh, that's not what, here it's got 76 as general office buildings and
Yes, that's
66.
the former, sorry,
Sorry.
that used to be a gas station.
76 is owned by one person,
Yes, 76 is a
my neighbor.
Owns all of it? And it's an office
76
building?
is rentals,
Office rental.
business, yeah, office rentals.
Office
Yes.
rentals, yeah. Yeah, that's the one that's 0.36 acres, or just over 0.36 acres.
It's very steep in the back and very wet.
That bears it out. It's got excluded land on it. And sensitive land. So 2,000, just over 2,000 square feet of excluded and just over 5,900 square feet of sensitive land.
Well, yeah, for a condo.
We can include the lot in spite of we just can't count the.
The excluded land portion is removed from the model for capacity purposes, but yes, you can include the whole lot, and then it models the sensitive and the non-market.
But they're not included in this picture.
76 is.
76 is in this one.
And it's right next to the school.
Chris?
Just saying.
Just to be clear on what we're voting about, we're voting about this geography is where we're going to focus. And we're going to take a very detailed look at each of the ones we're deciding,
Yes,
with the conceivable possibility that we will then say, after a more detailed look, no, we don't.
of course, we can always change our minds.
Yes.
And she's gonna give us the number of existing
Yes, so we
units
know what
on
the
it, so we know what
delta
the
is.
delta is.
Yeah, it's very important to know the delta.
If it's helpful to know this, we have done maps where we show the existing number of units on a parcel by parcel basis, and then the modeled number of units on a parcel by parcel basis.
On a map or on a
On a map,
spreadsheet?
on a map, so you can
Wow,
actually
that
point
would
to
be
it and look
great.
at it.
That
Yeah,
would be
yeah,
great.
that's, we're just, because again, once we have the geography for you to look at, that would be our next step.
Okay, are we ready to vote on this, or is there any further discussion? All right, Sandy,
I'll vote yes, given that we can change our mind.
Jenny,
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes,
Sue?
Yes,
Ann,
Yes.
Mike?
No.
And I'll vote yes also. Okay, now, do we want to talk about the LCD, or
We have another district, don't we? You talked about Desmond.
We talked about the Desmond, I did apparently send it out.
Do we have enough to work with now?
I think we
Yeah,
do,
we do.
we do.
Actually, if we, of these three, I believe, get us all the way down, is that not true?
No,
No,
you have
you
to
need
add-
Oh, we need
Desmond. Yeah, if
You have to
if
add
you
more,
wanted to
doesn't it? But
consider.
it gets you,
We
I
need-
think it gets
well-
you to 30 acres, or
So we need
slightly more than
a bit
30.
more in the
31.
LCD.
Yeah.
we're over 30 acres.
but I also feel like we should bring options to the planning board. If there are any we can eliminate, great, but it's okay to have more options than we need
Sure.
going into that phase of things, in my opinion.
So you could have an option that's
So Mark
within half
disagrees with
acre.
you, I just looked.
Yeah, I think this committee needs to come forward with consensus, this is our proposal. You can explain, let's say you choose not to have Desmond Street, and you can go, well, look, we took a hard look at Desmond Street, or we took a hard look at the medical office building, but we don't need something that big, we don't want to lose potentially that community benefit, so we ruled it out. And this is why, and I think the planning board would appreciate understanding how you got to what we're proposing, but I think we have to come in with, this is the proposal of the task force.
I'm very happy to hear you say that, Mark.
Okay, thank you.
I
Can't
mean,
put it off then. That's
No.
what you're saying.
You don't have, you have to make, I mean, I know, and I've learned that we like to evaluate and look at everything from every angle here, but at some point, we have to get past that, and we have to make decisions. because we are under time constraint.
Well, I think the big question for the planning board really is LCD, yes or no, and how much in the LCD?
Yeah.
What's the trade-off?
Well, I think we'll bring them a proposal and explain why we pick a particular piece unless this committee chooses the Desmond Street and puts it and says no to the LCD.
So,
Because, I mean, I guess that could be an option as well. But that is probably the piece that has the largest number of probable units that would be built in the half-mile radius than any of these other districts that you just voted on.
Okay, I would like to suggest that we endorse an overlay district on the plan labeled storage properties.
I'll second that.
Okay.
I didn't quite.
Storage properties in the LCD.
That we don't.
That we do endorse that,
Even
because
though we don't have
it's an the alternative is Desmond Street, which I consider,
Too much.
I don't see how we can restrict the old Cricket building enough that it wouldn't be a burden on the town. So, assuming that we can figure out why that's coming up with 0 units, those two units should be enough to get us to our acreage.
but I think we don't need both of them. So I'd like to reserve the option to only include the larger parcel if that's what we need to get to the 37 acres.
Let me see if I can, that we endorse using as much of the storage properties as is necessary to get us to our acreage.
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion.
Why don't you start at this end? Ask Mike first, because
Actually, I do have a question. So is this meaning that we are going to step back from looking at the medical office building and the map?
Yes.
Yes. Well,
It's
but
not to
if
say
we
that,
step back from downtown, we're going to further
it
than.
doesn't mean that we can't consider them. We reserve the right to
Okay.
reconsider. All right, well, we'll take a vote. I'll start with you, Mike.
I vote no.
Ann,
yes,
Sue,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Denny,
Yes.
Sandy,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes also. Okay. I think we're done with this part of the meeting.
Do we need to? We had maps on 2 other areas. Do we need to take a vote to not support them?
I don't think so. I
No,
think it's,
no. I mean, there are versions, the other ones were versions of Desmond.
if something doesn't work, we can come back. But
yeah, of course, this is not a.
this is just to give Emily a finite
Some
number of-
boundaries.
Right.
These boundaries are good. So just to confirm, we're going to do the existing units for each of the parcels in each of these districts, we'll map those out. I'm going to take an executive decision to get the zoning parameters down to something that makes the minimum unit and density capacity. And then show you what the units per lot, the model units per lot looks like. And then if you decide, hey, we don't like those dimensional standards, we can always change them. I just want to get to something that gets to the lowest number, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it is.
And
the
then,
lowest but not lower than.
oh, not lower, and it will have a little bit of a cushion. We've heard, again anecdotally, because all the planners are talking to each other, that it's a good idea to have a little bit of a cushion in case HLC says that parcel's not gonna get that many units. What are you thinking? So it's not going to be precise, but it will get much lower than it was looking today. And we'll come back, we'll research and find out what's going on with the storage parcels. I was having a quick look now and there's not an easy answer, so we'll figure out what's going on with that. And then we will, let's see, your meeting is Thursday, right?
Yes.
It is, I won't be able to do it for tomorrow.
No.
But we will try and get it to you Wednesday at the latest so that we you guys have a chance to look at it before you have your discussions, so.
And will you give us a total per overlay district of existing and capacity?
Yeah, you'll see
Okay,
the same
okay.
spreadsheets you've
Not
been
just by
seeing,
parcel,
we'll
but
do it by parcel.
I don't want to have to add it
Yeah.
up.
I wouldn't want to either.
Emily, just to be sure I understand, so our meeting is on Monday, the 25th, and you're gonna try and get us stuff by the 20th, which is next week, Wednesday.
Because you're also meeting
We're
next
meeting
Thursday,
on
right?
Thursday, so.
Oh,
You're meeting with the planning board on the 20th.
That's right.
It was on the original schedule,
It's been scheduled.
kind of. And that's what I would request if we can start earlier.
Oh, yeah, sure. Can we meet at, say, 5 o'clock? Is that okay for everybody next Thursday?
next Thursday.
Well, I don't think, Juan doesn't
Is-
come back.
Is this a meeting of us or a joint meeting with the planning?
No,
Oh, no, no,
us.
that's
Just
right.
us,
That's
I
right.
see,
Never mind.
okay.
That's
To
right.
finalize
I
things.
did, yeah, okay, I did have it.
Next Thursday at 5?
Yes, I can do it.
21st,
Yes.
21st.
Yeah.
today being the 14th, I guess.
Yeah, go to the math.
So 1 week away.
Is that okay with everybody? Okay, great.
Great, thank you. I have a finance committee meeting at 7, so. Based on
Maybe
last
we should
month.
meet at 3.
You need
What?
to,
Maybe we should meet at 3.
yeah, you should have a pizza delivery there. Sarah.
Based on last month's meeting.
Okay, all right.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the discussion of the neighborhood descriptions. I think since you all got copies of that thing about all the different areas of town. There's a pretty map on the front.
What are you talking
I
about?
mean this.
Yeah, there it is.
Yep.
Oh.
It's a terrific document, and I've eliminated part of it. It's very useful. It's very useful.
So what I'd like to do is
I've got it.
post it and deliver it to the planning board in advance of the meeting.
That's
Put it on the
email I did
website.
download.
It's a big document.
It's fine with me. I mean, I think it's additional information.
Does anybody object to having it?
No, if it's the one that was sent out, oh, okay, it does have,
It goes overlay by overlay.
I haven't looked at it yet.
District by district.
it's fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
trust you, Chris.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you, Emily.
Good luck, Emily.
all right.
Thank you, Emily.
Thanks, thank you. See you soon.
Okay, I guess the next thing we'll do is we're gonna go to the committee reports. One of them, the outreach committee, one of the things I'd like to do is in fact have a forum, a community forum scheduled on the Pine Street, Morse Court, Elm Street
The core.
overlay district, the core, which is our most important district. And I'd like to make it sort of
A walk.
a walk. We can all walk through it.
I think it'd be more effective to have it as a hybrid meeting. You get more participation. I mean, you can have a walk too,
Well, we're gonna do the walk anyway.
but
That's right.
But I think if you want to hear from people, you should let them call in.
Should we do it like we did the zoning thing and have it at the,
No, let's do it like we did with the Tux Point Rotunda.
how
I
was that?
wasn't there, so,
Tell us about it.
yeah.
Actually, we had 2 of them, presented the plans.
Where were they done?
They were done right here.
Okay, okay.
Presented the plans. People, it was a hybrid meeting, people could be here, they could be on Zoom. And then just took comments. And, said, we have finite time, so you have 2 minutes.
Right.
We will go through everybody once before anybody gets a second comment.
Okay.
And that one at least, or those two, were reasonably successful at getting people to understand why one decision was made rather than the other two.
And when was this, during the week, evening?
Evening during the week, yeah. Actually, it was done before a select board meeting for about an hour.
We do something like that, so I think we ought to go through all 4 districts.
I don't know if we can do all 4 in one shot, that's just gonna
No,
be too
no,
much.
I think let's focus on the core one.
We might do the others all together, but this one is the key one.
It's going to mean turning away questions from the others, because there will certainly
Yes.
be people there. But I
Right.
kind of.
I mean, we can still talk about the others, but in terms of,
I think we just
wanna limit it to one thing.
we present the Pine Street
Yeah.
thingamagummas. And if people ask about others, next week,
We'll do
there
a
will
forum
be
on
a
those.
forum on the other districts that we
Yeah.
consider.
Okay.
By all means, have walks.
Yeah,
Those are great.
Yeah, I was gonna say the walks are important. In the first forum that we did in the fall, we had 80 people there. And there was lots of back and forth, and, I mean, it was outside. When we did the density walk, there were a number of people there who were not town officials. And so the walk part is really important. I don't know how we'd integrate it with
We can
doing
do the
it.
walks
Have to be a
on
separate day.
Separate day, or maybe before. I mean, it's getting light. It's light still, pretty late.
So walking that Pine Street, the whole district, that's gonna take a while.
Well, we talked about doing a little walk,
tomorrow,
is it tomorrow?
it is tomorrow.
It is,
Wednesday,
it's
yeah.
scheduled for
That's all
tomorrow,
right.
but it's not a
But
public
that's not
walk.
that was us.
Oh,
it
just
was,
us.
yeah.
And do we even need to do that now?
I don't think so. I don't.
We don't.
I'd be willing to go to some.
I'm gonna go. Anyone else can come with me.
I'll walk with you.
Yeah,
I may show up.
1 PM though, because it's gonna rain in the morning.
Where are you starting?
I don't know, we had to decide that
Yeah,
tonight.
that's all right, so why don't we go right to the, so first, do we have a date for this?
We had April 6th. I have no idea what day of the week that is.
April 6th is a Saturday.
Saturday.
oh, yeah,
Yeah, which is good for a walk.
yeah.
No, for a walk.
But okay.
Saturdays
How-
aren't good for a forum because people with young kids
No,
are busy.
we want, for a hybrid forum, I think we want to do it before one of our meetings. Probably not before the next one, because there isn't time. Probably not before the one, maybe before the one with the planning board, but I think it'd be more polite to present this to the planning board before we
Absolutely.
open it for,
Yes.
so the next meeting after the planning board,
Okay, planning board meets on Mondays.
so that Thursday.
28th,
April 28th?
that'd be
I
March.
don't know, March.
Oh, March
March
28th.
And it also has
Next
the
week.
advantage, it also has the advantage of getting us in front of people right after the planning board
Yes, yeah,
session has been held. And
which is a good idea. The sooner the better.
Okay, March 28th. Let's see if we can get scheduled.
We'll do that at what time?
7 o'clock?
Good time.
No, wait, would
No,
we
it's
ordinarily
before
have
our
a meeting?
meeting. You were saying before we meet, so it would be like at 5:30. Is that
We're
what
gonna
you
get people participating at 5:30, do you think?
For a
I would do
walk,
6.
yes.
why don't we do it right after our meeting?
No,
No, we're not
Do
talking
that?
about the walk then,
Oh.
right?
No.
Right,
No,
we're
but
talking
yeah.
about the hybrid
Yeah,
form.
okay.
So can we do it at 6 and then start our meeting
Whenever it's over.
when it's
At
over?
7.
Yeah.
Figure 7. Okay, so we're talking about the 28th at 6 o'clock.
Okay,
And we just, put up the map and
Yeah.
explain.
explain
Have an
the data.
introduction,
And
and then just take comments.
And then we'll keep the Saturday walk on the 6th.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Okay, so now let's go to the,
Are you sure you want to do, wait a minute. Oh, no, I'm off a week, okay. I was thinking that was Easter weekend, but
no, so we
that's
can-
the weekend before.
The subcommittees. Richard, we'll start with you, I guess.
We met and received a draft of design guidelines after several workovers from our architectural team, and I sent out a copy to you all today. It's been rearranged a little bit with some contributions from the members of the committee. It addresses the design guidelines in several ways. It proposes the establishment of a 3-person committee that would be called into session by the planning board as necessary for projects. You wouldn't expect this to be a very frequent occurrence. It establishes design guidelines for massing, materials, suitability to the rest of the neighborhood, sets out specifics for the materials and form of the presentation, and I think gives that design review committee, well, our goal was to give that design review committee a set of standards which they could hang their hat on when it came to evaluating a proposal that was coming before them. These are guidelines. But I have sent them over to Emily. I think at this point, we did not address the LCD. And the comment that was made to our team by the architects makes sense to us, and that is that before we can really develop a set of design guidelines for the LCD, we really need to understand what it is that we want to happen there. Because there's a wide variety of things you can imagine you would want to establish design guidelines for. Do you want small units close together? I call it queens. Do you want garden apartments? Do you want a mix? Do you want retail? Whatever. So at this point, I think we're really looking for guidance from that before we can proceed further. And that's where we stand with it. I was really pleased with what they put together. I hope you are too.
It's pretty terrific.
Yeah, it's great. So my one question, and it really is a question based on the webinar yesterday. There was the comment that if you have something where you pass a determination off to yet another group to make a decision, that could be a problem. Is it your understanding that because they're just guidelines and that group does not have really veto power over a project, that won't be a problem?
Well, I would say that the way I stand on it is that we've given this to Emily, and my general idea is we want this to have as much teeth as we can have without going afoul of EOHLC. And she can give us guidance on that, and I really can't.
But the design review
Yeah.
board would
So
be
Advisory to the.
Advisory.
it's advisory, not
Okay.
not a decision. But so by being advisory, I don't think we run afoul of the MBTA rules
Okay.
because they're not granting an approval. And
That's a good question. Okay, and I guess that's sort of the end of the design guidelines committee until the LCD
They've
comes up.
vaporized.
It's
Well, we need
wonderful.
to get back to them though with images and ideas about the LCD.
I
Well, we
think-
do,
yeah.
yes.
And I think it wasn't part of our discussion that they were going to attend a meeting next week.
Oh, yeah, they will,
Yes.
they want to discuss them with you all, so
Right,
next
okay.
Thursday, they'll be here too.
So I think maybe.
Yes, thank you for reminding me, yes.
Yeah, so.
So you can give them all credit.
Well, but I think that
Before they
gives
leave,
us time to think about either we can discuss it now, but also to think about what type of, let's say we have 7 or 8 acres we need in the LCD, the big storage property, let's say. What do you want that to look like?
17-story.
Well, you couldn't
Careful
make
the
the
jokes you
zoning,
make.
so
Right, right, right.
it's,
Could
so it's
become a
1 unit
soundbite.
per, 1 unit per floor. With a very small footprint. Or you could, do attached townhouses really densely, or what type of thing or a mix of a couple garden style and whatever. So I think that's something we need to be able to give guidance to the architectural committee next week, so they can continue. They're not completely gone yet.
No.
No.
But we're gone until we get some guidance on what to do with the LC.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Okay, outreach.
I think next week we need to talk about because each of us will have a vision. And I think if we give them 7 visions,
My question about this is, isn't this more the planning board's area than ours?
Well,
I mean, we've been wrestling with things that are quite concrete. We have a set of guidelines, it all sort of makes sense. Now we're talking about really,
Uses.
I think it's
Site plan review.
it would be good, what I'm trying to say is it would be good to get some, it would be good to get some input from the planning board. It would seem to
do we
me.
have design standards in other districts?
the historic commission.
Historic Commission is the only,
They're not real.
We don't allow anything.
Right.
It's just keeping what's there. Right?
yeah.
No, we do not, and that's the whole point is, we can't
I,
attempt to impose design restrictions
Yes,
across the whole town
I don't think I made it
at this
clear.
point in time.
I don't think I made it clear, but a very significant aspect of these design guidelines is that they apply only to
The
renovations
overlay.
and structures that are being built under the
MBTA.
zoning of the MBTA. And so if you're in the MBTA zone, but you're doing something that meets the underlying zoning characteristics, these design guidelines do not apply to. So no one should feel that their property is affected by these in any way that beyond what it is currently affected by their zoning district.
I think maybe just gonna be an open discussion next week and see what happens. And maybe we'll have 7 different, or 10 different visions, who knows? Let's move on to the outreach committee.
Well, we covered a couple of the things already, just a quick debrief from our zoning forum. We had great participation and great feedback. People found it very helpful, said they learned a lot. Their main message was keep it simple when you're talking to us about zoning. And they suggested that we have consistent maps with additional detail.
Same color on each map.
So we'll think about that for the future. Just the only other thing, quarterly newsletter that Greg sends out with the tax bill. Tiffany wrote a short piece. It has really just the status of our work and the unupdated schedule. We're working on updating the FAQs and looking at additional questions of the week if people have suggestions. I would say send them to Tiffany and copy Gail. Some thoughts we've had. One is can't we just avoid this by getting rid of the MBTA station? Because that's come up at almost every public event we've had. You know, anything else, we're gonna do one on home rule, the meaning of additional units, what's an overlay district.
For the home rule, have you looked at the material, you were there, so did you pick up the materials that Mike Walsh
No.
produced?
No, I'm not touching that. I mean, I'll go listen, but I'm not touching the materials.
We need to address the questions that he's bringing up,
I know, and I am happy to do that.
but without seeing them, how do you address?
I did not pick up his materials on home rule. Do you have them?
No, I gave them to, who did I give them to? They're online, I'll send it to you.
Okay, that'd be great.
I have it too. This is Tiffany, so I can get it to everybody.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Tiffany. Anything else on outreach?
I'm sorry,
That's
I
it.
interrupted
No,
you.
that's fine.
You just said.
I think that's about it. Yeah, so thoughts of additional, how we should change the FAQs. Obviously, we're gonna update them, change the language a little bit.
We're gonna have them updated for town meeting.
Yes, yes.
That's the goal.
And you'll see them before they become final. Send
Okay,
us suggestions. Our next meeting is Monday, the 25th at 10 a.m.
all right, we don't have meeting minutes to approve, I don't think. So, do that at the next meeting. So now I'll open up for any public comment on what we were talking about. I know, but to see if anyone has anything to say.
Rosemary Costello has a hand raised.
Yes, Rosemary.
Hi, Rosemary Costello, 12 Bennett Street. I was looking through the webpage, the MBTA zoning task force webpage that you have on the town webpage. And I was wondering if you had, I couldn't find a list of what the assumptions are that you're operating under for just the general understanding, like, you know, you want to stay out of the historic district. You want to keep as much of the original existing zoning as possible. You know, those a list of those assumptions that you're operating under.
So we have a document called Guiding Principles that we adopted, which,
I believe it's there.
yeah, and it's on the website, just a different name.
Guiding principles. So I saw the mission.
No, it's different from the mission.
Guiding principles.
Should be there. We can send it to you.
I'm looking at the website now. I'm not seeing guiding principles. Maybe it's called something else.
Well, let's see.
Should be called that.
It's in a black box. It's in a black box if you scroll down.
Oh, adopted guiding principles. Okay, got it. Thank you. I was thinking that was a heading for that subsection. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
I think it raises an interesting question whether we should have a list of assumptions that pertain to the model.
I agree.
Yes,
Yeah.
we need that.
Yes.
That would really, I think, help.
Yeah.
It almost, it explains a lot of what we do.
It's a great idea.
In other words, minimum lot size, setbacks.
Everything that she's included in the
Right.
model.
Yeah.
Well, she's plugging in.
Inputs.
and,
You're asking for all the inputs, Jenny, yes?
Well, input or assumptions behind the model.
Mhm.
Great idea. Okay, good. Anyone else from the public?
Nope.
Okay. So,
Mary.
Can I ask just one technical question of this? So when you talked about this sub-overlay, whatever you call it, sub-district, being mixed use, my understanding was that if you do mixed use, we then need to include more acreage because of the density issue.
Only if it's
That's a
mandatory.
different, that's, if we,
That's
if
mandatory.
we had a separate district that required retail under residential, then yes, you're right, but we're not doing that.
Okay, so only if it's mandatory, okay.
It is confusing.
It is confusing, it is confusing.
Diabolical.
The whole thing is diabolical.
Yes, sir, Mr. Gates.
Jim Gates, 2 Desmond Avenue. I've been puzzling the transportation results of having, let's call it, distant locations with an overlay for this 40A. And wondering if it's feasible to accomplish alleviation transportation to the center of town by taking, I think came up some years ago, the allotment that the town gets for having the MBTA service and transferring it to Cotta Bus Transportation over in Gloucester to set up a scheduled service from these distant locations of overlay to the center of town. I know that they do a bus service with the city of Beverly and another one for the town of Essex. And maybe that's one way to get a service for the town of Manchester for this particular situation of an overlay district for 48 purposes.
I can speak from the finance side,
Sure.
that we don't receive money from the MBTA, we pay money to the MBTA. We pay over $100,000 a year to the MBTA from town budget.
Okay, well, that maybe that, I've just got at the wrong end of the piece, that we would instead take that payment to the MBTA.
We can't.
And pay it to Cotta.
We
Well,
can't.
I think you're raising a bigger question.
It's a
which is,
state assessment.
Can we generalize the question about providing access from outside areas to the downtown? And I think it's a very good question. It's not really our purview, unfortunately. I know it's been talked about. I think it was discussed with the SLV project as a way of connecting them to.
It's been discussed at the select board more recently, and I cannot recall where we went, but it's I'll dig it up.
Maybe we can get the beach bums to do the,
Yes.
little jitney might take care of it. Okay, any other comments from anyone? I'll take a motion to adjourn then.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You can ask Mike.
Mike, are you willing to adjourn?
Yep, I vote yes.
Yes.